Welcome. Today, the United States Attorney's Office and its partners announced the criminal indictment against a North Korean national working on behalf of the North Korean government's military intelligence agency. The indictment alleges a conspiracy related to ransomware attacks and cyber espionage against victims in the United States and elsewhere. Yesterday, a federal grand jury in Kansas City, Kansas, indicted Rim Jong-hyuk on one count of conspiracy and one count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. The Department of Justice has identified approximately 17 victims targeted in this hacking campaign. These criminal acts were allegedly perpetrated by a group known as Indictment, which is a component within the North Korean regime. I'm joined this morning by Steve Cyrus, the special agent in charge of the FBI Kansas City Field Division, which led this investigation, as well as the AUSAs prosecuting this case. Cybersecurity is critical to the systems and structures that uphold our way of life. This indictment demonstrates our resolve to use every tool to protect the integrity of American organizations from foreign intrusion. In early May of 2021, conspirators gained unauthorized access to a Kansas hospital's computer system. They used a previously unseen malware tool called Maui. The malware encrypted 4 of the hospital's computer servers, affecting medical services and patient appointments, and putting at risk the healthcare needs of Kansas citizens. The perpetrators left behind a ransom note demanding payment in Bitcoin in exchange for restoring access to the servers. It reads in part, and it is shown on the screen to my left. If you want to restore your files, you will need to make the payment. Otherwise, all your files will be posted in the internet, which may lead to loss of reputation and cause troubles for your business. It goes on to say, please don't waste your time. You have only 48 hours. After that, the main server will double your price. A payment was promptly made on behalf of the hospital to the cryptocurrency address specified by the hackers, and the hospital was able to regain access to its servers. Thankfully, the hospital contacted the FBI soon after the ransomware attack. And because of this early engagement and the hospital's ongoing cooperation with the FBI was able to identify a cryptocurrency account linked to the scheme, and the government has forfeited the funds and is in the process of returning them to the hospital. But the Kansas hospital was not the only victim. Hospitals and healthcare providers in Arkansas, Florida, and Colorado, a healthcare advocacy group in Connecticut, were also victims of the Maui ransomware. The blackmail proceeds from these healthcare providers funded North Korea's cyber espionage, which it used to carry out hacks on U.S. federal government agencies, multiple U.S. military installations, and multiple defense contractors and other companies located in the United States, South Korea, Taiwan, and China. In addition to the FBI, our law enforcement partners at Air Force Office of Special Investigations, the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center, and NASA OIG provided invaluable assistance. And we also thank our private sector partners for their commendable work in the fight to detect and disrupt Indictment actors and those like them. Steve Cyrus from the FBI will now discuss the tireless investigation that led to this indictment.
Thank you, Kate. Good morning. The FBI is here today as the lead federal agency for investigating cyber attacks and intrusions in the United States. The charges brought here in the District of Kansas are part of the FBI's worldwide effort to counter ransomware. These efforts focus on all 3 aspects of the ransomware threat: the actors, the infrastructure used in the attacks, and the money. The charges brought today are the result of years of work by multiple FBI offices, fellow federal agencies, particularly the Air Force Office of Special Investigation and the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center, as well as international law enforcement and intelligence partners in the Republic of Korea and around the world. Also, probably our most crucial partners in this investigation are the victims of these attacks and our private sector partners. Without their cooperation and collaboration, these types of complex cyber investigations would be nearly impossible. Without all these partnerships, we would never be able to impose risk and consequences on malicious cyber actors targeting U.S. companies and critical infrastructure. Of note in this case, we want to highlight the cooperation of NASA, who was a victim of this ransomware campaign. As we've laid out in these charges, our cyber adversaries use ransomware operations for financial gain, to steal proprietary information from our most advanced tech companies, and disrupt our critical infrastructure. In this case, we have seen North Korean actors target U.S. hospitals and public health providers, launder the proceeds, and then use these proceeds to conduct additional computer intrusions on companies that provide some of our most sophisticated military weapon systems. North Korea continues to carry out these sophisticated intrusions targeting the U.S. as a way to fund their military programs, thereby threatening the U.S. and other countries in the region. The economic impact of these attacks on our critical infrastructure and private sector is significant. Over the past 5 years, it is estimated ransomware and associated cyber incidents have cost U.S. companies tens of billions of dollars in losses. Economic security is national security, and it is imperative that we continue to mount joint sequenced operations against these type of malicious cyber actors and the countries that protect them to ensure the United States retains economic and technological advantages. Protecting our companies and our critical infrastructure requires partnership. We ask that companies contact the FBI as quickly as possible when they believe they are experiencing a ransomware event. Contacting us as early as possible not only allows us to determine if we are able to assist in unlocking your data, but also to provide you with technical information we may have collected from other victims of your ransomware variant, and from here in the U.S. and from partner agencies around the world. Cyber is the ultimate team sport, and the FBI works with agencies all over the world to combat these type of threats. And that international collaboration benefits companies right here in Kansas. I'm often asked what companies can do to better prepare themselves for these type of attacks. I encourage all these companies to create a relationship with their local FBI office. That relationship will pay great dividends on the day of an attack or can possibly help prevent an attack from happening. It's that public-private partnership that allows us to hold bad actors accountable for these cyber attacks and better protect Kansas businesses and citizens. I want to conclude today by thanking Kate and her team here at the District of Kansas, our team of computer scientists, intelligence analysts, and special agents, both here in Kansas City and at our legal attaché office in Seoul. These folks worked for years here in Kansas and around the world to collect the evidence needed to hold Rim accountable for his actions and to expose the role of North Korea and its intelligence service in these attacks against our companies, our communities, and our citizens here in Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And at this time, I can share that the U.S. Department of State is offering a Rewards for Justice reward of up to $10 million for information on the defendant, his organization, and associated entities. For more information, you can go to rewardsforjustice.net. At this time, we'll open the floor for questions. I will say at the outset that it is not our policy to name non-governmental victims. And keep in mind that part of the strategy here was to damage the reputation of these entities. And so we won't further their aims. So we're not able to tell you any of the hospitals or healthcare providers that were affected by the ransomware attack. If there's any other questions, perhaps Steve or I can answer them.
Kate,
yes.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, obviously getting the indictment, what you've indicated is this actor is part of the North Korean government. This is sort of a concerted attack by that government. The fact that he's indicted here, I mean, the likelihood of him actually going to trial here seems like it would be minimal. There's certainly the government is not going to send him over to the United States to face trial, so what's the purpose of indicting him?
Certainly, and it's a great question. We use every tool in our efforts to fight malware and ransomware attackers, and this is one tool. We are working closely with international partners, and certainly there could be regime change in North Korea. This is one step in pursuing justice against RIM, and borders will not stop us. Peggy?
You guys mentioned 4 different states other than Kansas that have been affected.
Yes.
Florida, Colorado, Connecticut. Why run this out of Kansas?
Well, the Kansas hospital was the first victim that we became aware of, and also we have great capacity here in the District of Kansas.
I mean,
You also-
how long did the investigation last before you were able to bring charges?
I'll let Steve talk to the investigation. I think it's 4 years.
It's a multi-year investigation, and it's something to where we may have an investigation going against the actors who are actually conducting the attack, but certainly until we have victims and certainly until such time that we decide to bring the charges forward, the investigation is going for many years, oftentimes until we actually decide to bring forth the charges, sir.
Steve, I did want to ask you too,
Yeah.
it's not a one-off. We've been hearing about this stuff just in our
Right.
area, multiple attacks. There was one just right on the other side of the state line against Kansas City government, another one against Jackson County government, there was one against Liberty Hospital, there's one right here against the unified government in KCK. Is there any connection between this guy and the North Koreans and any of the other stuff in our area at this point that you know of?
Nothing that we're bringing forward in any of the charges. We don't have any indication to believe that those ransomware fit into what North Korea is doing here. This is what we have proven here within the Kansas that we can tie to this actor and this organization, sir.
Quick question on the crypto aspect of it. You know, crypto was meant to be anonymous. How is it that the federal government is able to go and seize those funds or cause forfeitures for people like this? Because you said you're in the process of getting the crypto forfeited.
It has been forfeited. It's just not been. It's in process of being returned to the hospital.
What about in general, because this is what these folks want. They want people to pay. We've been told by other jurisdictions and other law enforcement, it's a bad idea to pay these folks. What's your take on that? What advice would you have for somebody that might be attacked in the future, potentially, about paying or not paying these people that are blackmailing them?
So that's, no, you could take
Okay.
it.
I really leave it at a case-by-case basis. We're not going to give the advice on what they should and shouldn't do. Ultimately, what we try to put out to them is, as you saw in this case, oftentimes the ransom payments are really just one step along the way. And our director has laid out at times what we've seen in other offices, that you have what essentially becomes a triple ransom. You have your data, which is locked. You have the next ransom, which is in terms they have your data and they say they're going to release it, even if you do pay or don't pay. And then ultimately, they may come back because they're never going to give up the foothold they may have in your system, and they may actually do ransomware again. So ultimately, it's a personal decision between the company and kind of their shareholders and kind of their stakeholders in that, whether or not they think it's the right thing for their company to do. But we just try to provide the information of what we've seen in other areas to give them the best information we can to make their own decision.
Does this reward apply dead or alive? Does this put a bounty on him?
No.
It is not. No,
No.
it is not a bounty.
It says in your news release that the Air Force Office of Special Investigations is working alongside law enforcement. Has the Air Force been victimized by these hackers?
I'm not aware that they have.
I'm not aware that they have, but anytime that you have any type of defense industry that may be associated with the Air Force, they also oftentimes will, because they have a vested interest in that entity, be working alongside us in investigating as well.
And you did say that they've gone after the U.S. government in particular, correct? I mean, against various things.
Correct.
With the government using this money. Can you elaborate on that at all?
It will be in the indictment, which you'll have copies of at the end of this press conference.
What was massive?
The U.S. and include there were two Air Force bases which are named in the indictment. and we're getting you hard copies.
Was
Yep.
NASA a victim in this